Thanks for having me on. Likewise.
I am so excited to hear more. I listened to a couple of the podcasts that you've done about your journey as a physician and just kind of where it led you today, where you're able to do neurofeedback from a distance, which is really remarkable. So I didn't know if you wanted to share a little bit more of your story or just kind of tell us how you got started and all that fun stuff.
Sure. I mean, how far back do you want me to go?
When did you decide that you wanted to be a doctor, study neuroscience, anything kind of fun brain nerd world?
Well, I hope this helps some other people out there listening or, who have children and whatnot. I really was not the greatest student in high school. I was great at what motivated me, but history, for instance, well, now it's interesting because I love studying history, but for instance, that would be a subject I could care less about then.
Yeah, I was the same.
So yeah. I mean, but I wanted to be a doctor. I was on ambulance corps and I was doing lifeguarding and, I was always interested in something in science and helping. And then when I got to college, I just realized I could do it. And I just really committed myself fully to academics and, science and learning. So that was kind of how I got into it.
That's amazing.
I had and then I started doing research in brains. I mean, really early on, I just happened to fall into a work study program at Syracuse University. It was actually at SUNY, University of New York.
Yeah.
And it was doing very early brain-computer interface research, half paper tracings, half computer. And I just sort of kept on the neuroscience track ever since sort of 1989.
That's amazing. And as someone that's had a QEEG, I think it's just kind of cool how the information comes out and it gives you that data of this is exactly what we need to do to reset your brain waves. What are some of the biggest takeaways that you've had and some of the biggest, miracle stories of recovery? Because I know you have a lot of them.
Well, let me just start from the beginning, I guess. I'm my first neurofeedback patient. I mean, I tried this on myself. I had ADHD and I did this on myself and I did my continuous performance test pre and post and I did my QEEG. I've never needed a stimulant since then. I've done a lot of sessions on myself. So I'd say that's one.
That's huge. Yeah.
I had a very early, this is one of my first sort of impressions on where I saw someone completely change. And this was an older man with severe debilitating panic and anxiety who wasn't able to work or really live outside of his parents' house. And again, I don't want to put neurofeedback in this special box. Like, let's not do that, right? I work with a team and everything's multimodal, right? So neurofeedback is an adjunctive treatment that helps people, right? So it can be a bridge or really something that can get someone started or just sort of the QEEG, knowing someone's, for example, has a traumatic brain injury and they may need neurofeedback and hyperbaric or XYZ, right? So, I'm not always saying that, neurofeedback is the only thing that has assisted, but it has certainly been paramount in specific cases. I see such a spectrum, from 6 years old autism, which is not something I seek, to 75-year-old people with severe traumatic brain injuries. And I see the significant benefit in most everyone who does it.
I love that. And I think it's just, like you said, it's such a good tool. And it's literally a brain map where, where at Emmett Clinics we use SPECT to get a map of kind of what's going on. Again, it's never going to be just one thing. It's going to be multifaceted. And that's really cool about you using it for yourself for ADHD. And I'm in that same boat. stimulants did not work. And my whole ADD story with Dr. Amen is on YouTube. But yeah, same, very similar. Didn't do well in history, had to memorize with my teacher so that I could get good grades because my brain just didn't memorize things that I felt were meaningless. And unfortunately, there were a lot of things that I was learning that I felt were meaningless. And it's so funny now because so many people that I talk to in this role will say, wow, your memory is so good. Like, how can you remember this conversation we had 6 months ago when you're helping all these people? And it's like, my brain focuses on what I'm good at now. And now that I'm able to do that full time, where I'm just focusing on the things that I'm passionate about and the people I'm passionate about, my brain is working the best it could have possibly ever worked.
I saw some literature, I don't know, maybe it was in the last year or two, about people who develop specific memory techniques, and they actually end up rewiring their brain and their memories get sort of better and better. My wife has been accusing me of having reverse Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Like, as I'm getting older, I'm forgetting less.
That is amazing. And that's what we're here to do, is just let people know that things like that are out there.
Yeah.
I just realized some people might not know what neurofeedback is and what acute EEG is.
Oh, cool. Let's talk about those. But can I just, I want to say, like, so you were talking about Amen and specs. So understand, I went through neuroscience in the 90s, and that was when Dr. Amen was really under a lot of fire about what he was doing. I mean, now everybody, it's accepted, right? But so when that book came out, it was very controversial. And I was one of the people in residency who was always like, no, this is right. This is right. And everybody like medicine, and I'm not affronting my brother, and I love working with psychiatrists. QEEG, that stands for quantitative electroencephalogram. What that is a measure of the electrical activity that comes out of the brain through the scalp, through tiny little sensors that pick up this microcurrent. The current goes into an amplifier that sort of boosts the signal so the computer can read it. That's just an EEG that you would get, say, in a hospital or from a neurologist, that you would use to look at many different conditions like epilepsy, or somebody might have lack of oxygen or something like that. But then what we've been doing, we neuroscientists, computational neuroscientists, over the last, well, for me, 30 years, is taking that information, using mathematical models and statistics through computers to be able to develop like systems to be able to look at the brain, say, in 3 dimensions or 2 dimensions or in action. And it's different than I just spoke to someone, and I don't mean to, I'm not going tangential here, but I just spoke to someone recently who was at Amen who had a SPECT. And the first thing I want to know is, what does the SPECT say? Because it's like information that really is synergistic together, right, if you overlay these two. So so I hope that answers the question about QEEG.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, and just to take that a step further, what Myneurva, my company, has patented is a software program that works through the internet. It's actually a method that we can cluster mass amounts of EEG, and then very quickly take one EEG and compare it to all of these other clusters of EEG and come up with sort of more neuroscience-based analysis of what's going on in the brain, rather than, say, like a psychiatric or using words from diagnostic manual of psychiatry, diagnostic and statistical manual. And so then what neurofeedback is just a learning paradigm. It's just an educational tool. What neurofeedback does is it takes a person's brain where it is and tries to coax it through a technique, or it's a theory called operant conditioning, to learn to do something new with its electrical activity, if that makes sense. It's like when you learn to juggle, your brain is getting new electrical activity to make those circuits to juggle. But what if you could go to the brain where those juggle circuits are instead and teach the brain directly there to sort of strengthen the circuits for juggling? You get better at juggling.
Right.
So neurofeedback is So I mentioned this word operant conditioning, and a lot of people, even people that have psychology backgrounds, get freaked out by all that conditioning stimulus and unconditioning stimulus. And actually it gets so complicated, I can't figure it out either. But classical conditioning is like Pavlov's dogs. People will say, is this like Pavlov? No. Pavlov rang a bell. Well, Pavlov did a lot of stuff, but in this particular experiment, he rang a bell in the presence of food and taught a dog how to, the dog would salivate.
Right.
Basically, he paired something that was already happening, salivation, with the bell. So that's physiologic. That's why it's classical. Operant conditioning works on a theory of sort of Bandura is the guy who's learning theory, but it's the idea that you can teach a new thing, right, with some conditioning stimulus. So instead, you're already salivating in the presence of food, right? But if you teach the dog to sit for food, now you have made operant conditioning. If you do that with a clicker, you're essentially being a neurofeedback machine. That's how neurofeedback works. So I hope
such a beautiful explanation.
Yeah, that's sort of how I see it, at least.
That's so cool. I love that. You're in Costa Rica, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And how are things going down there? And if you could tell people more about how far your product reaches, because it's really amazing. I was still kind of in shock when I had that initial call with your staff about where you're able to send all these devices to help people. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, my company is a lifestyle company. In other words, my lifestyle came first and then the company. So what that means is, I guess, I guess you must already know this, but in 2008, my daughter, my eldest daughter, whose name was Anna, died unexpectedly of a seizure in the middle of the night. And then as a result, that sort of just severed my sort of any kind of connection I had with the mundane in life. I realized that if you can go at 6, you can go at, I was 38, whatever it is, right? So I sort of went on, I'm married to an Australian. She called it walkabout. So I was on my walkabout. And my walkabout went through, I think I have about 18 stamps on my passport.
Wow.
Through that time period. And I ended up, really gravitating towards the specific latitude where there's good surf and it's warm. Right? I want to be around surf. I want to be around the ocean. I want to be around waves and the wind. And so I realized that I could live where I was and do what I was doing, which was already remote neurofeedback, because I had already started doing that in 2006 and 7 or something. So
What?
I just, yeah.
Wow.
When I was in private practice in psychiatry, I was already doing neurofeedback in 2003, and I figured out that you could just put them in a box and teach people how to put sensors on. Now, we didn't do it through the internet at the time. We sent them home and they did it, and then came back 5 sessions later and we checked it. Right. Then it got to the point a little bit in like 2008, there was Citrix and I could start to control a little bit, but it was really weird. But it was in 2013, 14, 12, actually, that it changed. The internet got fast, programs got changed, Zoom came out. Then it just got to the point where it was kind of a no-brainer. So I started with 2 systems. Now there's 30.
That's amazing.
That's sort of how I got to, so I went Hawaii, very big waves, for me, a little too costly for living, to the Dominican Republic, absolutely beautiful country, really good waves, really good wind. Realized that I didn't love the isolation of an island. And so that's then just Costa Rica, the infrastructure here, digital infrastructure, and also their ethos. I like the ethos here. What can I tell you?
I love that. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of documentaries about Costa Rica, and it's pretty magical.
What would you like to know? You've never been.
Well, I don't want to let the secret out. You can get your fresh fruits and vegetables picked, and they bloom at different times, and you have to eat it within, a lot of them anyway, from the documentary I watched, you have to eat them within 24 hours. And so it's very community based, like, hey, these are ready, we're going to eat it together. That is where my heart is. I love the concept of food and community, and especially when it's healthy food and you're in a community that is helping take care of the actual land and the products, which I think is really, really amazing.
That's absolutely true. The only thing, I'm sort of giggling to myself a little bit. The reason that you're giving away, the reason you're giving away, I'm looking outside at my tree, like the reason you're giving away all those fruits is because you've eaten so many of them, because you grew them.
So cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, we grow a lot of food.
So what would you say to someone that was having depression, anxiety, and was wondering if this could help them?
Wow. I'm pausing and I'm hemming and hawing because it's very easy to just expound upon various things that I know that are general, and that would be disingenuous because we live in a time that is completely different.
Absolutely.
And I speak to people, many countries, so I see how this is affecting people from Hong Kong to Saudi Arabia to you name it. So it's not that easy for me to give general advice because some people are locked in, some people are shut in, right? So, I think what I think is, when it's unexpected times, you have to expect unexpected, right? And so having the flexibility, and this is what I think I've been saying for 10 years before all this happened or longer, but you have to have that flexibility in your brain to begin with,
right,
for times like this.
Absolutely.
Right. But if you're operating, and to me, I would say like a high beta state, right? If you're operating where your brain is in a fight or flight already, then how do you have any room? You're already at your ceiling. So this is the first problem. So, right now I'd say people have huge, I believe that from what I'm seeing, at least, or reading in literature and seeing in amongst my other, peers, is there's a lot of issues with substance abuse right now, for instance. I mean, that's something that really is, or at least can start as a decision.
Right.
In this particular instance, I'm not, we can delineate, we can have a long debate about alcoholism as a disease or what, but that's not what I'm talking about here. And I'd say just where people can start to exercise or meditate, maybe, these things to me every day are part of what makes someone be a healthy human being. But the problem is that when people are in such a funk, they cannot even start doing that. And sort of that's where home neurofeedback comes in. Because they don't really have to be, you don't have to get to your appointment.
Right.
Your appointment's right there.
Yeah.
And it can be a catalyst, right, to people getting started and being able to get into a meditation program. We teach people meditation through our neurofeedback, and to cope with anxiety and depression. So I'd say that those would be my advice, Dr. Starr's advice. I would say do things that enrich a person socially with family and friends. Make sure you are active in your body, right, and your mind. I think meditation is mind exercise.
Absolutely.
I hope that helps. It's very difficult to give advice in a time like this that is universal and helpful and genuine.
Well, I really appreciate your insight and your time, because I feel like it is such an underutilized tool that can be so helpful for so many people. And when we were doing it in the clinics, I would see kids coming in from school and like they were so excited to like therapy where their little electrodes were on their head. And I think there's just something really cool about the power of knowing that you're doing the healing, like you're helping your brain function based on science, but also just kind of motivation and that sense of accomplishment in yourself. That's what I think is so cool about when we're using devices to help.
Have you ever tried it?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I'm curious what my beta waves looked like when I had my Q.
I don't know. Where is it?
I was going to pull it up. Because this was 2014.
That's funny.
I'm going to screen share. So this is in 2014, and this was 2 years after my first SPECT scan, but I'd already had 2 SPECT scans by then showing improvements in blood flow. So I guess I wasn't expecting my Q. I was expecting it not to be perfect, but I was hoping.
I'm not seeing your share screen yet.
Oh, I'm working on it. I'm
okay. Okay.
I'm super slow. You can tell me why, maybe based on this.
Okay, let's see. Go down.
So
it's the first thing that okay, so the first thing I'm gonna have to say is obviously I would have to see the raw tracings to really.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure how.
I don't want to see this.
Okay.
Keep going. I know this scale. Yeah, this is I know these maps, but these aren't the normal maps that I use. So you can stop right there. Yeah, it's hard when you can't toggle these. Can you toggle them to 0? Can you press that 0 button on magnitude contrast? Go right to magnitude, press 0. Can you press it?
This is a PDF.
Okay, too bad. Okay, so on the website it's interactive. That's okay. Let me just make the adjustment then.
What do you think?
Thank you.
This is in 2014.
So
this is sick, Fallon.
This is not exactly the database that my eye is completely calibrated to.
Yeah.
But if you really do you want me to just tell you? I mean,
yeah,
I can go into detail. Well, first of all, I see a posterior high alpha there, which is nice. So, that's like a trait that people have who might have good memories, actually. I believe, actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's like every 0.02 I think it's 0.02 microvolt or 0.2 microvolt above 10 microvolts of alpha correlates to like an additional digit on digit span recall. I see something in the back there on the.
I'm excited.
I see. So basically, people who have yellow in the back of their heads in alpha can remember bigger, longer phone numbers. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So back here, if this is real, on the right hand side in the delta, so on the total left hand side of the map here, you see the two red sensors.
Yeah.
So you could have gotten a hit there. You could have had a TBI there. Did you get hit in the back of the head?
Yeah, my specs show a hole back here because I slipped and fell into the corner of a glass table and it literally punctured a hole in my head. That took like 3 years of supplements and hyperbaric to get back. So that was a severe injury. I couldn't drive in a car because even a tiny bump would cause an excruciating migraine for about 2 weeks. So that was pretty severe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Can you fly in planes?
So funny you should ask. I can. I love flying just because I think it's magical. And I think
you fly?
Cool. No.
Oh.
That would be amazing, but no. One thing at a time. But the first time I flew after doing hyperbaric, I didn't have that like seasickness feeling that I normally do. So it's kind of cool that I finally was flying and not feeling sick, even though
interesting.
Would just kind of power through it because it was fun. But yeah, the first sessions of hyperbaric were intense because it's like my brain needed that oxygen so much. And it was just like, what are you doing?
There's a condition that is believed to be rare, but in my realm, I don't think it's rare. I think it's somewhat potentially more common, which is called superior canal dehiscence. And so what happens is in an injury like that on the side here, there's a little part of in the upper ear canal that can kind of like pull off. and bother the semicircular canals.
Gotcha.
And it's aggravated with pressure. So people they can't scuba dive, they can't go in airplanes, hyperbaric bothers them. And I wonder if it like popped back in.
I felt something because the second or third time when I was like, oh, I'm good, I don't need to like slowly raise pressure. Just super dumb, right? I was like this in it. I was like, like it hurt so bad. Like I'm doing it, it's fine. And then after that, I never had any issues. And it's to the point where I feel so comfortable in there that it's almost like I'm not even in there, if that makes sense.
I have to say, sometimes when people push through things and they're going through healing and they really deal with discomfort, it's when they make their breakthrough. And it's really tough to like, people have to do that themselves as a healer or a doctor or something. It's not something I think you can impart upon people.
Thank you for saying that, because I'm a big baby with pain and that really hurt.
Yeah, I bet. You gave yourself a pneumatic surgery. And then the other thing is and then this is difficult to know or not, but if the posterior part here that's in high beta, so we have sort of a finding that we have that shows us PTSD, and it's very, very similar to that, but this scan doesn't give me enough detail to be able to really tell that. So what the brain sometimes does is it makes high beta when there's slow waves to compensate for the slow waves, to sort of take over the function. And that's where a lot of times people can get, I think, or at least, who knows what the chicken and the egg is, what's related, but I've always sort of thought that the slow waves on the left that somebody has in a head injury are actually the brain is trying to speed it up by making the fast waves, and then we feel it as anxiety.
That's very interesting. I mean, my specs was very clear PTSD.
I didn't want to say that, but that was my initial. My initial was head injury PTSD. That's why I was like, sure, you want me to say?
No, my spec is all over YouTube. Like,
okay.
But
that was my initial.
Thank you. That's really cool. Because I've looked at this a million times, and I was actually asked if I wanted to start training as a neurofeedback provider. And like, because of just the math and the maps, I'm like, my brain doesn't work that way. Like, ironically, like.
Well, you remember colors. You'd probably always remember people's QEEGs.
I would be curious, because I remember people's spec. Like, I can just see their name in, the patient file, and like, I'll remember what their spec looks like. Because it's such a clear, to me, it's such a clear picture versus these where there's like.
I relate. I think I see the brain scan more than I might even remember the face.
Yeah. That's so.
Sometimes, yeah. That's how I remember people. I have mirror neurons for brain scans now. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've been hearing a lot of people talking about mirror neurons recently.
Oh,
it's like a buzz right now.
I haven't heard that. No, I've thought that for a while. Yeah, I don't follow much like that. Yeah, when I see people's brainwaves, I can feel bad, like just as you might if you were listening to somebody in a therapy session.
That's really interesting.
I'm like, I don't want to feel that way.
Do you want to stop looking at my brain?
No, I don't mean yours. Yours is fine. I like the posterior alpha.
Thank you.
The low, there's a little low theta. You might be able to do some more meditation, but this is relative. See, I think I'm looking at the right maps here. I think this is the same as absolute power on top, and I think this is the same as like relative. Go down a little bit, but like I said again, this is I know what. Yeah. Okay. No. So that I believe that's relative power there, but let me double check. Can I see that line up? Go one up. I mean, I got the read right. So this is the connectivity. This is called coherence, and it's just showing us, I think, looks like in delta and theta, intrahemispheric hypocoherence. So the two hemispheres in those brainwaves are not communicating as efficiently as they could be. And a lot of times when the brain gets injured, it shakes like this, it moves, it shears, and the little connections can get torn. You need another QEEG.
Yeah, I would love to see it now, because I've done so much work and my spec looks good. My newest spec looks good.
Okay. So then, yeah, I'd love to see if it matches.
Me too. That was fun.
That was fun.
I haven't looked at that in a really long time.
If you had prompted me, I would have been able to take your raw data and have it through Anna, so I could have given you the artificial intelligence printout.
Anna?
Anna, so I had mentioned earlier that my daughter who
Your
passed
daughter,
away
yeah.
was Anna.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it started sort of as a, I don't know, I mean, when you write a patent, it's a dream, you just write it.
Oh.
So, I named, yeah.
So you're really going to fall out your chair. Who is the name? This is crazy. The woman who did my cue, her name was Anna Powers.
That's weird.
It's
So
so
this,
weird, right?
yeah, so this is
She's
advanced.
a powerful person.
Oh, I know. I think I know that name. Yeah. Advanced neural network analysis is the name of the ghost in the machine that I made.
Love it. That's so beautiful.
Thanks.
Anything else you wanted to share? You've been so wonderful. I really, really appreciate you joining me.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
How's Atlanta?
Atlanta's great. It's been warm this week. It feels like Christmas. I really can't complain.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's a nice time. That's like really nice time of year there. Yeah.
I like it hot, but this is definitely better than a New England winter, which is what I grew up with.
Oh. Atlanta's not your home. That's not where you're originally from?
Not where I'm from. It's my home. This is where I was meant to be.
At least I came from the Northeast, so I'm from
Oh, no way. Mm-hmm. Well, you went to school in New York, so I was wondering.
Jersey. I was born in New York, but I grew up in Jersey.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I had a fun weekend there once.
Down the shore?
No, actually in Jersey City, like in the city.
Oh, yeah. I rotated through a couple of those hospitals.
Thankfully, I didn't have to go to one. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. I really enjoyed meeting with you and speaking to you, and also getting to see your brain scan.
Yay. Thank you for looking at it. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. Have a great